everyone, this is Miff, your life and performance coach, and welcome to the Actually You Can podcast. On this show, we discuss strategies for growth for ambitious individuals so you can spark and initiate your next evolution. You'll hear from inspiring guests who will share their journeys, challenges, and lessons learned. And I'll be sharing insights and actionable takeaways from my aligned results framework that will help you to align your goals, mindset, and strategies to reach your highest potential. So be sure to hit subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to so you can easily find this podcast again and stay updated with new episodes dropping every week. In this episode, Kirk McCarley offers insights on the elusive yet oh so desirable concept of living one's best life. He explains that it's about seeking fulfillment, purpose, and joy in all aspects of life. But how do we get there? Kirk, who's worn many hats as an executive and life coach, ESPN broadcaster, and spinning instructor, has discovered his own unique formula for living a fulfilling life. He shares that embracing challenges, discovering our purpose, and forging meaningful connection are the building blocks of a fulfilling and meaningful existence. So without further ado, let's jump into the show. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kirk. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
The pleasure is all mine, Miff.
I'm so excited for our conversation. And I would love for you just to take a moment to introduce yourself. Who is Kirk and what are you currently working on?
My name is Kirk McCarley. I am a husband. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. I have the joy and pleasure of getting to live in Northwest Florida, the Florida Panhandle, about a half a mile from the Gulf of Mexico. And I am living my best life right now. I'm so blessed in that regard. I've got three things that I do, and sometimes all in one day. Besides mowing the grass this morning, I am a executive and life and career coach, and I have my own business with that. And I contract with people, and I contract with agencies to perform that service. I've been working with ESPN now for over 30 years, and I dart off to Louisiana tomorrow morning to go do a college football game in Baton Rouge on Saturday night, which is quite a happening with 100,000 of my best friends. I'm also a spinning instructor and teach a couple of classes a week. I cycle, and I'm just so fortunate to, at 66 years old, still be doing all those things and just having a blast doing it.
And I love that you said you're living your best life. And that's really what I'm interested in delving into today on the show with you. And so I'm curious to understand, have you always been living your best life? Are you someone who's always been really happy with their current situation? Or what has that journey looked like for you?
Well, I could lie and say yes, but I'll not. Living my best life really seemed to embark when I got more aged, more seasoned, more veteran, so to speak. But 20s, 30s, 40s was good. Was it an A? No, maybe a B plus, A minus. Obstacles along the way related to finances, learning how to be more effective in relationships, learning what I was put on this earth to do. And that required a lot of soul searching. And for me, maturity and discovering that didn't come until later on in life. I was doing components of what I love doing, ESPN being one of those. But as far as other aspects of my career, I would say no. And raising young kids is a challenge, but we got them raised up out of the house. They're succeeding now. And now we've got grandkids to borrow here and there. And that's a joy and a pleasure to be able to say, we love them, but here they're yours again. And we're going to go back to living our life.
It's a different approach when you can give the children back to the parents as
That's
opposed to
right.
having to look after them. I can appreciate that. And so you mentioned that it was maybe a solid A or B minus and you're enjoying elements of your life. You specifically mentioned ESPN. What were you doing there at the time and what did you love about it?
When I was 32, I started working in the realm of providing data for college athletics. And my time in doing that goes way beyond when I was in college at university. I happened to room with a broadcast communications major, and across the hall was an IT person. And he was living with a person who had played high school basketball and was pretty good at that. So, we're in our late teens, early 20s, and we're watching sporting events on TV, which are being commented upon, but we're also providing our commentary amongst ourselves. For me, I'm providing the statistical component of that. Player comes up, and let's say the announcer says he's 6 of 17 shooting from the field right now. So I do my calculation. That's 35.3%. If he hits this next one, he's 7 of 18, 38.9%. If he misses, he's down to 33.3%. So I had this mathematical gift that I would do in my head. The broadcast communication major would give the play by play, and the other guys that were there would give color analysis. And usually it was kind of acerbic comments predicated on what the professional announcers were doing. Well, I met my wife, who would be the woman who would be my wife during that period of time. And she was among the ones who would walk in while we were doing this and say, "You guys need to get a life. What are you doing?" And so I got I graduated from college, had my regular job in human resource management and going along the career path. Uh, about 10 years after that, my broadcast communications buddy said, I'm going to be doing some American football. Would you like to join me in the booth and provide the statistical analysis? And I said, heck yeah, I'll do that. So that journey launched in 1989. He has since gone to other endeavors, but I continue to do that and do that with the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network, AKA ESPN.
That's incredible, and I have to give a little laugh because my partner loves looking at the statistics. He's heavily involved in fantasy football and a whole bunch of different sports in that realm, so it's definitely something I can appreciate, and I can definitely nerd out on a little bit as well. And so you mentioned that at the time you were doing the statistical analysis, but you were also looking at a career in HR. Tell me more about that and how you ended up in that career.
Good question, Miff. And it's kind of funny how I happened upon that because in college, I worked with recruitment a lot. I was a member of a fraternity, and so I was the rush chairman. And so I would invite people to come to gatherings, consider whether they wanted to be a part of our group or not. And so this recruiting aspect was birthed at that point in time. I happened upon a job, and it just so happened I'm 23 years old at the time. This organization fired the then personnel director, and they said to me, "Would you like to assume that role?" And I'm kind of like, I guess so. And so it was a trial by baptism, real quick, of learning mostly what not to do early on. But that's what kicked off my HR career. And I did that for about 35 years with 5 different organizations along the way. How I transitioned into coaching is when I got late in my HR career. I noticed that a lot more people were coming to me. They weren't asking me so much about what's pay policy, what is, uh, talk to me about employee relations, about training. But they would come in and ask, Kirk, I'm kind of frustrated with what I'm doing in my career right now. How can you help me with that? Help me improve in that regard. So it kind of planted a seed. I hired a coach myself at that point in time and examined some things that I could be doing and floated around several different occupations actually. But it's about the third meeting, Myth. I said to him, I want to do what you do. And so that launched my journey into coaching, and that was probably about 10 years ago.
And it's so interesting you mentioned that you had one role, but people were coming to you for other things. And I find that's really common in industries like potentially HR, but also with the industry that I've been in the fitness industry. People come to me to train their physical body, but you spend most of the time talking about their mindset in relation to that physical body. And so it's just interesting how it seems like there is such a need for the human population to have that sort of mental support. We support a lot in the physical and the hard skill sets, and the soft skill sets and the better understanding of self seems like there's still a underlying demand for in a number of areas.
Well, as you know, in the fitness industry, there is such a connection between mind and body as well. And coaching has elements of that. I'm a spinning instructor and I apply coaching uh, in working with my class members that are in those classes as well.
And so how do you do that out of interest?
Visualization comes into it a
Yeah.
great deal because what you're trying to replicate in that cycling class, first of all, getting a good aerobic and anaerobic workout, but secondly, making it enjoyable for the participants that are there because you're in a room, there are blank walls, maybe there's lighting, maybe it's dim, but you're having to create an experience for them. So we'll talk about sensory feel. How does this feel to you right now? You're climbing a hill, and do you feel that wind that's also in your face right now? What is that saying to you? How do you push harder so that you can get to that point where you go downhill and you can pick up your cadence? So to make it an enriching class, using a lot of those metaphors that play into it, or we'll set a scene today. We're going to climb the sandhills of Florida, or we're going to go to the Appalachian Mountains and mention a specific marker or milestone that's there that we're going to go to, and how quickly can we get there, and what do you need to do to put your best effort to achieve that?
And just hearing you talk to that, it's really obvious that that's a real passion for yours, and sounds like creating experiences for others is something that you have a great deal of strength in doing. And so I'm interested, earlier you mentioned before that you were looking to find your purpose. How did that journey start for you? And what would you describe is your purpose?
Great question. And so many people now um, wonder if am I being impactful in my life? Am I affecting others? Am I touching them? So we have influencers that are out there that are doing that, and TikTok and those kinds of mechanisms, and people get a lot of followers. For me, it was more of a one-on-one type situation, and going into that job in HR initially in my younger days, very much, what are the mechanics of this, following procedure, process. And it wasn't until I had been in there for a while, maybe getting into my 30s and 40s, that I developed the self confidence of you can improvise a little bit on this, Kirk. You don't have to go according
Yeah.
to the rule book all the time. The rules are there to keep us in line, but there's a lot of flexibility in working within that. So who are you going to be as an HR person? What is your brand going to be? So probably in my 30s and 40s, it became approachability, openness, um, honesty, trust, um, confidentiality. You could approach me, and if it was something that was very sensitive, you could trust me to keep that information between us two, unless it was going to impact others in a negative way. So, discovering that brand and gaining that self confidence at that time, but also I was frightened to death about getting up in front of people and talking to them, making presentations. What helped me overcome that was working with a play by play announcer, a color analyst, and hearing that in my head every time I did an event, how they spoke, how they paused, how they hesitated, how they brought storylines into that conversation. and learning the gift of slowing down when I needed to, or picking up my speech pattern when that was important as well. And also the power of silence, sometimes to let people just kind of drink in what's happening without anything being said. So I incorporate that into my delivery style. And I'm still not at the level of the professionals like that, but I'm a lot better than I was a long time ago.
And on that, did you hire them to coach you or were you role modeling them?
I was role modeling my
Yeah.
announcers at that time. What can I pick up here and apply in my interpersonal communication? But also with that, when I talk to people, make sure it doesn't sound like I'm announcing a game. Talk to them as a person.
I just pictured what that sort of conversation would look like in my head, and I think it would be amusing as all hell, but, maybe not quite land how you might intend, but that would be definitely an experience.
uh, but my wife is sometimes my biggest fan, but she is also uh, a person who will call it like she sees it. And so she'll come and she has her own business and will talk to me about her business and I'll listen to her and she'll say, "What do you think I should do?" And I'll say, "What are you thinking about?" And she'll say, "Don't coach me. I just want you to give me an answer."
Yeah, we have those lines in our household too. It goes, "Do you want me to offer a suggestion or do you want me to listen?" Yeah.
Exactly. And what I
And
often hear from her is, "You're not listening to what I'm saying." Well, no, I'm listening, but I'm just not understanding it. So say it
yeah,
again.
just don't wanna know what role you want me to play in this conversation, and also I just need to understand the context in my own way. My way of, um, making sure I understand is I repeat back what I've understood, and for some people, they're like, "Yeah, that's just what I said. Weren't you listening to me?" I'm like, "No, no, that's just me checking my understanding. That's how I make sure I understood." But yeah, the difference in learning and understanding of everyone is, a skill.
It is, and my wife, she does great with her business, and it's been my joy and pleasure to be with her for 43 years now.
How wonderful. And you mentioned that you're role modeling these announcers, and I think that's a really incredible skill that probably isn't talked about enough, is just the power of modeling. Everyone who is successful has their own recipe for success. And if we all adopted that recipe, then we would achieve the same results. So, for example, if I got a cake recipe and followed it to a T or followed the same process as a Michelin star chef, I would hope they would get the same outcome. And so it's interesting to me that did you consciously choose to model them because you knew that you could learn from them that way, or was just modeling something that you just thought to do?
It came by happenstance, myth of just doing what I needed to do, and then
Yeah.
that point of realization of I can learn some stuff from this. But in the announcing booth, what we're trying to do is invite people in to listen to us, to almost join that conversation. And so when I'm listening to what they're saying, I'm providing statistical data, but what statistical data can I provide at this point that will flow into the rhythm of the conversation that they are having that will make what they're saying even richer? What can add? Sometimes I can't add anything. So at that time, they're doing fine without me. Sit back. But if it's something that, oh, this would enrich that, I'll hold up a little written note and they'll pick up on that as well, and sometimes give me credit for it.
I feel like there's a whole metaphor in that about, the power of adding not talking for the sake of talking and waiting for those moments and enriching them as opposed to adding noise. I feel like there's some metaphor in there that I can't quite formulate in my head, but what you've just shared is very beautiful.
The power of silence is deafening, as,
Yeah.
some will often say. We're working right now on radio. So on radio, you're painting a picture for the person who isn't visualizing what's happening on the playing field. So descriptions such as the color of the helmets, the jersey tops, the trousers, the shoes, what the crowd is looking like is extremely important as opposed to television, where the viewer is going to be able to see that. So there's less verbalization that takes place during the contest because the picture is going to be speaking. What the real challenge used to be, it doesn't take place as much anymore, is simulcasting, where an announcer would be broadcasting on both radio and television. And I've
Ooh,
done a little bit of that before, and that's an interesting blend. It doesn't happen so much anymore because what you're seeing at home, at least here in the States, is often a 3 to 5 second delay in the
yep.
event that something might happen that we don't want the viewer to see. That started in a Super Bowl about 20 years ago when halftime entertainment, a breast was exposed inadvertently. And so children were watching. We need to deal with that. I'm not going to call off the entertainer. Many people will know, but we have a little bit of a delay now in case something like that should occur to not put that out there.
I didn't realize that was the reason. Like, I could see why have a delay, like, if there was a horrific injury or something like that, you're like, "No one needs to see that." That's but I didn't realize, but there you go. Learn something new every day, don't you?
Well, a story that I'll share. This was many years ago before that episode, but when we would fade to commercial with the network that I was working with at the time, you would have about a 10-second countdown. You would have a crowd scene. You would have a scene with a mascot. And so, cute, sweet little 3-year-old girl sitting on daddy's lap. And we posted the score. We said, we'll take a break in the action and we'll be right back in 2 minutes or whatever it is. So, this little girl that we're focused on, live TV, mind you, and the announcers are talking. The little girl's finger goes to the nose and up the nose, sweet as can be. And I can hear the truck in the background going, 7, 6, hurry, 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 5, 4. But if it didn't stop there, the finger then went to the mouth. And it was there for all who are viewing that contest to see. And we were all going nuts. How are we going to cover this one when we return? The color analyst did it quite well. He opened up when we came back from commercial. Well, we return to action now. And he said, well, you can't say that we don't know how to pick them.
Good save, and I can just imagine that sort of footage being pulled out at a 21st birthday or something like that, being like, "Remember
That's
that one
right.
time you picked your nose on, like, national television?"
Right.
That's a good save. And and so it's really clear hearing you talk about this work that you have a deep passion for it as well, and so I'm interested to hear, what does living your best life mean to you?
It's waking up in the morning, having a sense of purpose. I'm necessary today for this or for this assignment, for this individual. Uh, I need to get prepared to do my very best. And what does that preparation look like? How do I go about doing that? Um, there's some mental self talk that'll take place with that. Uh, who are you going to be today? What are you going to be to some individuals? Going to a spinning class, 6 a.m. in the morning. All right, where are we going to ride today? How is this going to thrust me into the rest of the day? But not just me, but the people that are attending that class as well. So it's that preparation. It's being able to check things off the list. I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction with that, but also the things that have been on the list for a long time to finally take that marker and check it off after 2 weeks or 2 months. Or I'm working on a book right now. That's going to be several years to be able to check that off. But it's there every day, which indicates to me, uh, son, you need to go do some work on this.
I'm just inspired listening to that. Like, I can see how those ingredients would make a really fulfilling life, and one thing that stood out to me in particular was having understanding your purpose and how do you serve people today, and what that says to me is I think it's really common that we look at our lives and more specifically our role in our life. Like, what do I need today? What do I need to do? What's going on with me? And just hearing you say how and paraphrasing how you can be of service to others. What do you think having that external view on your life, like your life is about you, yes, but what do you think is the power of thinking, considering others in your life? What power do you think that can have on your own fulfillment?
I love what I do as a coach, but and I get paid for it, but the fulfillment comes when I get to join in celebration with someone who has achieved something that's important to them. This was a couple of years ago. It was after COVID, and I had a client I was working with, very successful in what he was doing in his career, but he wanted to do something more than that, wanted to have impact on others. And he was also single at the time. And I got involved in a little love and romance there, not with him, but helping him
Yeah.
to discover that. But that was a byproduct. So the main thing is I'm successful in this career. How can I maybe have a parallel career that's going to assist others? So what he ended up doing is getting inspired to be a financial coach to people who were struggling, people in their 20s and 30s, struggling with debt. How do I pay off these credit card bills? How do I help coach people to have the discipline to do that? Well, along the way, Miff, he met a young lady and they developed a romance and they ended up getting married. So, love, romance, money, oh, it made my relationship with him just to see his joy and his satisfaction of achieving the dreams that he wanted. That's worth more than all the gold in the world, and it was for me. Just one example, and I get those moments and people will say to me, "Oh, you helped me so much," and I say to them, "You helped me so much by allowing me the opportunity to come inside your life, hear what your passions and dreams are, and be an accountability partner to assure that you got those things accomplished and achieved."
I get goosebumps hearing stories like that. I think as a coach, I definitely resonate with just how powerful it is on yourself to be able to support people to live their best lives as well. And what I hear in that story is by also being in alignment in his career, he's been able to attract an ideal partner into his life too. I think it's important to note that our lives don't operate in silos. Like, your work isn't separate from your personal life, which is separate from your relationships and your health. Everything's sort of intertwined. And if you start focusing on what's important to you and how you fulfill in one area, that's only going to positively impact the other areas. And it sounds like that was the case for him.
And my wife says, "You're bringing people together into holy matrimony." And I'm like, I guess so.
I've got many talents, and that's just one of them.
I would like to say that's one of my best talents, but I would not be truthful on that. So sometimes we have our Forrest Gump experiences where we just happen to be at the right place at the right time. So
That's so wonderful. And so it's really clear that you know what fulfillment and happiness and means to you now. Has that always been the case? Have you always known what these ingredients were? Or if not, what was your journey to discover them?
oh, I've had those moments of being lost. I have had some ruggedness along the way, dealt with clinical depression and have hired counselors, worked through those kinds of situations. And one thing I discovered, uh, it's very important for me to be busy and to be engaged. Movement is an important thing. Idleness is an enemy. So I could be living a life where I'm reading books, I'm having leisure time out on the beach, which is half a mile from our house here. But that just doesn't do anything for me. And I know if I fall into that pattern, it's not going to be successful for me. I'm going to become, well, I'm already old, but I'm going to become old mentally, I guess, with
Yeah.
that in my approach to things. So I've got to have movement. I've got to be blowing and going and having a lot of activity in my life. And I found that to be the case for a lot of people that I coach as well. And one of the questions I'll ask is, are you, do you have inertia right now? Are you in movement?
Yeah.
Uh, Not only physically, but mentally. What are you reading? What are you working on? What does your to-do list look like? What do you need to check off that to-do list to give you the inspiration to move to the next thing on your to-do list?
I love the concept because I think people can have different relationships with busyness. Like I love doing things that energize me. It brings me energy. And I think some people use busyness as a way to avoid working on the things that they actually potentially need to. So I think for some people having a full plate is really resourceful and for others it's potentially not. And I love the idea of looking at it as having stuff to do gives you inertia. I look at it from a motivation point of view. It's like you need to get into motion to be able to create motivation sometimes. People sometimes just wait for motivation to strike. I'm like, well, if you take the steps towards the thing, chances are you'll start developing the motivation. And what I took from that as well is I think COVID was a difficult time for a lot of people. And hearing just what you shared, it might have been because people suddenly lost that inertia. What do you think?
COVID, uh, I, I, I've gotten my vaccinations, but I've also gotten COVID too. But
Yeah.
that COVID experience was good for me from a business standpoint because that's when things really started to pick up in my coaching business. People were lost. They were frozen. What do I do? I need some help. The world has changed now. How am I going to adapt to this changing world? And so my business really took off at that point in time with people seeking some answers and solutions to what do they need, what do I do next? And the COVID experience from a sports standpoint became quite odd as well
Yeah.
because we broadcast a lot of events remotely. And that was a
Mm.
whole new thing for me, not going to an actual site, relying on technology, which I'm not a very strong techie, and I'll admit that. But if I wanted to keep doing what I was doing in sports, I needed to adapt. How do I utilize Zoom to a greater degree? Relying on remote statistics, relying on a feed with announcers who are wherever they live, and I'm where I live. And other support is operating from their basement or living room. How do I talk? Using the Unity app. So these were all new things for me. And I was quite intimidated at first. Oh, I don't adapt well to this, but
Mm.
I adapted by eating that elephant one bite at a time. What do I need to learn first? Okay, let me
Mhm.
learn how Zoom is going to work for a sporting event. All right, I've got that down. How are the tools that I'm using right now still applicable? I've got that down. How do I use this communication app, which is on my iPhone, in order to talk to the production truck, to talk to the announcers?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got that down. And it was very mechanical at first, but I adapted to it. And pretty soon, those that adapted, they stayed employed. Those that did not,
Yeah.
they were very limited in the scope that they could do. So my motivation was, I want to keep doing this. So I have to
Yeah.
think different. I have to learn a different language. And so now that's improved my versatility. And interestingly, all my coaching meetings, 95% of them went Zoom. Very few are done live. So that transition there complemented what I was doing in my business.
Yeah, and it sounds like Because I mean, we all were presented with different challenges during that time, and it was really the opportunity to learn and thrive during that. And some people didn't, and for whatever reasons. And it sounded like for you, your motivation to figure out those challenges was you really enjoyed what you were doing, and so you're like, I need to figure out how to keep doing this. I find often with clients, they start struggling when they don't have that strong connection to what's really important to them and their purpose. And I think that's when they can get in periods of inactivity or just like lack of inspiration. What's your what's your experience in terms of having something to work towards in terms of just overall life fulfillment? How important is to have something you're working towards in that?
Regardless of where we are in life, what is what are the little things that you need to accomplish or achieve right now? Maybe there's one or two big things that are out there, the bucket lister, so to speak. To give an example, for my wife and I mentioned earlier, we've been together for a long, long time. Uh, we set a goal we wanted to set foot in every U.S. state, and we were stuck on 46 for a while. Uh, a couple of years ago, we got Connecticut, Vermont, and Rhode Island. We've got one more to go. When are we going to do it? That was Alaska. We achieved that this summer. So it's all checked off the US list now. Now it's there's a whole world that's out there. What do we need to go see next? Israel had been on the bucket list for a long time. That's the plan in March. And MIF, Australia has been on the list for a long, long time. We've got to get to down under. And that's been a burning passion for both of us. And so we've got to do that. That may go on that list after Israel.
Yeah, and it's a long journey, but well worth it. Every time I go to the States, I just keep forgetting how far away we are from everyone's. But it is worth it. Welcome down anytime. Our nature will kill you, but apart from that, it's pretty good.
Well, what each will kill you? What has the saying goes? Something like that. So
Makes
we're
you
ready for
stronger.
that adventure.
Something
We're
like
ready.
that.
That's
Yeah.
right. We're ready for that adventure.
And so I'm interested to hear a bit more. We talked about your HR career, and from what I've read about you as well, there was a particular moment in your life where you might have had some health challenges that really reshaped how you view your life. Or if you wouldn't mind, I'd love for you to share a bit more about that sort of period in your life.
Yeah, this was on a Friday, 2014. I was preparing to go to a football game the next day, and before I went to Oklahoma, I went to the gym to work out. Of course, I'm a group fitness instructor, as a spinning instructor, cycling. So I was doing lateral pull downs, and after I got done with the set, the world got a little bit dizzy, and then it got black just immediately. And the next thing I knew, I had an oxygen mask on my face. I was laying on the ground, and there were EMTs, paramedics bent over me, asking me my name, my date of birth, and wheeling me out. Well, my first thought was, I'm kind of mad that I'm in this predicament. This shouldn't happen to me. So denial as they wheeled me out in a stretcher and took me to the hospital, and I had to go work a game. Well, I wasn't going to go to that game, so I had to cancel out, and they had to get a substitute for the Saturday event. And so that was annoying to me because I pride myself on attendance and being there. Well, heading into the weekend, there were no technicians to run any kind of test to see what had happened. So I'm marooned in this hospital bed on a Saturday and a Sunday. Monday, I have the test run, and there are some blockages. We're going to do bypass surgery, and we'll do that the next day. So my wife was down here in Florida at the time, and I said, "Darling, you need to come here. I'm going to have open heart surgery tomorrow." She's kind of like, "Aren't you gonna get a second opinion?" And I'm kind of like adamant, "No, by this point in time, I just want to get this done and get it over with." So that's exactly what I did. That was on a Tuesday, and recovered nicely from that. But it was about 10 days later, when I'm recuperating at home, and I'm starting to get a little bit depressed. And I get to the point of self-talk and I say, you know what? I'm going to endeavor to get better than I was before, get back into my workout routines and have even better stamina. So I was back at work part-time physically about 2.5 weeks post-op. And the nurses were saying, you shouldn't be doing this. And I was kind of like, I need to be doing this. I returned to exercising 5 weeks post-op and was leading spinning classes 7 weeks after surgery. And what I find is my long-term stamina is better than it was before. So the surgery was very necessary. But also it was a moment in time. Had I not been in the gym where there are EMT, uh, paramedics, people know CPR, they know AED techniques, we wouldn't be talking now. So I was in the right place, the right time, knowing that 57 years old, uh, what are you going to do to get on with life? So that was an inspiration for me. It's time to get serious about this coaching, to go back to school, to get educated, and to start the pathway towards the life that I really want. So that was an unfortunate moment, but really a critical moment for me.
Yeah, and I'm sorry you had to go through that, and you never wish for any horrible things to happen to anyone, and it's so I don't know how else to say it, but it's so lovely to hear that you've used that event to really go after something that's meaningful.
My wife and I were having a conversation today. When are we going to retire? I don't have any, my parents worked into their 80s. Why should I not as well? I'm having fun. It's like every day for me is either a work day or a day of vacation. And I can't, that the two kind of blend together. I'm having so much fun doing what I'm doing.
And so you had this moment in like later on in life. What would you say to maybe a 30-year-old Kirk who was living a B minus fulfillment life? What would you say to him?
The best is yet to come. There are going to be obstacles that you're going to encounter that you're not going to enjoy very much, but they're going to be part of the learning experience that you need to go through to get you to where you're going to be eventually. So be observant, learn, keep your eyes open, um, strive to do the right things, be a good citizen, and take notes on what's to come because there are going to be some important things that you're going to encounter that are going to contribute towards who you're going to be eventually.
And just from what you shared with that, I feel like I might know where your answer's going here, but looking back on your life, would you change anything in terms of your journey to get here?
Sure, if I had options to look back on, I wish this hadn't happened. I wish this was better. But I realized that's all a part of taking me to where I am now. And had those things not occurred, I may still be here, but I may not have the richness of what I'm
Yeah.
experiencing now. So I love my wife. She's been a great partner for me. She's been through me with me through all these ups and downs. Yeah, together, we wish some things would have been different, but we're both very fulfilled, very engaged, and both really enjoying what we're doing right now. So not really, I guess would be my answer to the question.
Yeah, and I think and that's what I thought your answer would be, right? Because I honestly believe we all have our unique journey to navigate while we're here on this earth. And I think all the challenges make up that journey. We aren't served challenges that we aren't prepared or don't have the ability to overcome. And I think it's just such a different mindset when coming up amongst resistance in your life, going, what can I learn from this or how can I overcome it? As opposed to looking at it through the lens of why is this happening to me? Why does all these things happen to me? It's just such a different view. And it sounds like one you have.
I had those moments and they became part of my stories.
Mm.
So there was a purpose for that. I mentioned I'm writing a book now. A lot of those stories are going to be in the book, stories of awkwardness, of fear, of not making the best decisions, but hopefully learn from them. And through what I've experienced, they can be some learnings for some others.
And so I find as well, some people can use their stories as something that empowers them or sometimes as a crutch. What made you decide to use the event with your heart surgery as one to motivate you to squeeze even more fulfillment out of life as opposed to going, my life's over. I've just had heart surgery. I need to wrap myself in cotton wool and just sit on the couch for the next few years.
That just didn't seem like much fun, but
Yeah.
I guess the competitiveness kind of kicked in on that. I wonder what I can do to go beyond this event that's occurred. So there was a challenge. And so challenge yourself because this could be an example to some other people as well. And it was a healthy endeavor for me to get back out into the game, so to speak.
Yeah, it sounds like if you can't find the motivation to do it for yourself, look at what you could do for others.
Exactly. And I've encountered other people who've had the health issues along the way. And so to serve as a encourager to some of those folks who are going through, be it cardiovascular challenges, knee, hip replacements, cancer, whatever the case may be. And it's funny because we've all got our problems and challenges, but there's the story of people bring all of their problems together and you can trade your problems for someone else's. At the end of the day, we keep the problem we had when we see what some of the other issues are in the world. So I'll take what I had.
Yeah. I think people like the idea of living an easy life. And I honestly don't think anyone has an easy life. I think with great privilege also comes challenge. Like just because your circumstances might be fine doesn't mean that you're excused from challenge. I think that's all just part of the human experience.
Running a marathon's not easy. Doing a 100-mile bike ride is not easy either. But the satisfaction reward of having accomplished and achieved at the end is wonderful gratification. And the one that, and the gratification that tells you, I want to do this again.
Yeah, and hearing you say that too, something that comes to mind is the fact that I feel challenge and overcoming challenge is also what gives life a bit of color and meaning. What would you say to that?
The people that you get to encounter along the journeys. I mentioned the Forrest Gump situation earlier, but just why am I talking to this person now about this at this point in time? How did this come about? And just the richness that comes with talking with somebody on an airplane who had parents who were prisoners of war during World War II. And I'm content to just read my book on the plane, but then this comes up and it's like, wow. So those encounters, the people I get to coach and how the networks start to blend together. Oh, I see you did this. Did you know of someone that was here? Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, let me tell you a story about them. Wow. So the richness of one on one or group encounters with people have been just pure joy. And there's stories that come out of that.
Yeah. And I'm interested. What impact do you want to leave on this world? What is your mission?
My legacy that I want to leave behind is my kids and their kids will be solid citizens and maybe following some example that I may have set with that. Uh, my memorial service to be standing room only, but to be filled with laughter and stories and recounting exchanges that we have had with the people that are maybe attending there. So my legacy is going to be the memory of stories, leaving good citizens in the world. I'd leave it at that.
I love that so much. And from what you've shared, it sounds like you're well and truly doing that. I know the stories that you've shared with me today and our encounter today will have a lasting impact on me. So thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting that you mentioned your legacy and your funeral. I think some people, when they think of their death, it can be quite confronting. And I actually find it helps to reorient me. If I go, hey, what is my legacy? What do I want to leave here? And just that helps me to realign my purpose and refocus me on what I actually want to achieve in my time here.
I hope the tears are tears of joy for having had an encounter with
That's so
whoever
beautiful.
is there attending, and
So
that the
wonderful.
party is a huge one afterwards.
And will people what sort of music will be playing and what will people be wearing?
If you come myth, we could get some in excess, maybe the Seekers, maybe Midnight Oil,
Oh,
uh,
yeah, that would be a party.
and maybe the Bee Gees. We'll throw them in there as well.
Oh, how wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise and experience with us today. I really appreciate it. And just by talking to you, I feel really inspired to live my best life. And so I'm interested to hear what's a really actionable step you would recommend someone take in the next 24 to 48 hours to start living their best life and squeeze all the juice that it has to offer.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to something I referenced earlier, and that is this idea of movement. If you feel like you're frozen or that you're stuck right now, go for a walk, go for a bike ride, call somebody. Encountering another person, you may think I'm encroaching upon their time, but you may be giving them the best favor that they need. And it's to hear someone, and it will fulfill you as well. So it's this powerful thing called movement, doing something. Go live your best life.
Ah, full stop, bold, underline, love it. Movement. And so if someone is interested in learning more about the work that you do and when your book is ready, how they can find out more about that, where can they find you?
My website is theseedsowercoach.com. My email is kirk at theseedsowercoach.com. Kirk McCarley. I'm on Facebook and I am on LinkedIn as well.
Amazing. And I'll put those details in the show notes so people can find them there. But thank you so much, Kirk, for your time today. It's been such a pleasure to connect.
The pleasure was all mine, Miff. Good to meet you.
Thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Actually You Can podcast. I so enjoy having you here, and I hope you've taken away powerful insights and tools that will support you to achieve your high level results. Now, before you go apply all of this wisdom in your life, I would be so grateful if you are able to leave us a podcast review on the platform that you're listening to or share this episode with a friend. Your support means that we can help more self-led, high-performing individuals just like you expand what's possible for them. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, so please go on and shoot me a note on socials and let me know what you think. You can find me on Instagram at Miff Galloway. Now, go ahead and make those dreams a reality because actually, you can.